My stepdaughter said, "I don't owe you anything." So I took back the phone, the keys, and the room I was paying for. She had to explain to her date. We were parked outside the mall. The air was stiff. Late summer sun bleeding through the windshield. Too bright, too hot. I had turned the engine off to save gas. Just one of 1,000 small calculations I made every day that no one noticed. Haley sat next to me in the passenger seat, her face illuminated by her phone, fingers scrolling through some endless feed of faces and fake laughter. She hadn't said a word since we left Target. Not thanks, not a goodbye, just silence. Then, out of nowhere, her voice cut through it. "I don't owe you anything." She said it flat, like she was reading it off a menu. Not angry, not emotional, just final. Like it was a truth she'd been sitting on for years. And now, in that moment, she had decided I needed to hear it. I didn't move, didn't turn toward her. I stared through the windshield, eyes fixed on the strip of sun-bleached asphalt beyond the hood of the car. Couple walked by, laughing. A mother pushed a stroller. Life went on. But inside me, something cracked. I said no to a $100 spa day. That was it. She wanted a facial and a body scrub with her friends before school started again. I said, maybe next month. Just that, no lecture, no guilt. Just reason. But that was enough to reveal the truth she'd been holding like a dagger behind her back. "I don't owe you anything." The words echoed in my head louder than the first time. I'd heard versions of it before, just never this blunt. Never so distilled. I gripped the steering wheel. Not tight, not with anger, just to remind myself I was still there, still tethered to the seat, still real, because her words made me feel like I wasn't. I started replaying the last 2 years like flash cuts in a bad movie. The way she stopped greeting me when she came home from college. She used to say, "Hey," at least. Not anymore. Now she walked past me like a ghost. The way she introduced me to people. "That's my mom's boyfriend. Not stepdad. Not Rick. Just a role. Temporary. Interchangeable." As if I were one of those background extras in a show who doesn't get a name in the credits. The way she'd text me only when she needed something. "Can you put gas on the card? Need help with my essay. The internet's down." Never "how are you?" Never "thanks." And when her boyfriend Trevor came over for the weekend, she didn't even bother letting me know. I walked into the kitchen Saturday morning and there he was, shirtless, pouring my orange juice. Like I was the guest. Like I was the outsider. That's when it hit me. I had become part of the furniture. An ATM with a face. I wasn't a father. I wasn't even a stepfather. I was just the man who paid the bills and kept his mouth shut. And it wasn't just Haley. It was Jenna too. My wife. Her silence was its own betrayal. Because silence is a choice. A mother knows when her daughter is pulling away from the man she married. A wife knows when the air changes in the house, when respect leaves a room and doesn't come back. But Jenna did nothing. Said nothing. Not when Haley ignored me. Not when she rolled her eyes behind my back. Not even when I asked, point blank, "Can we talk about Haley?" Jenna would sigh. Say, "She's just stressed." Or, "She's figuring things out." Or the worst one, "You know how kids are." No, I didn't know how kids are. And I knew what it meant to be erased. Because I had spent years showing up. Years doing the hard things. Working overtime to cover her tuition when the scholarship didn't stretch far enough. Negotiating with landlords to get Haley a decent apartment near campus. I co-signed the lease. I paid the rent. I handled the car payments, the insurance, even the new tires last winter when she slid off the road. That car? Registered in my name. Bought with my credit. Maintained with my weekends. I made sure she had what she needed. Always. And she couldn't even say thank you. But now I got the truth. Brutal and clean. "I don't owe you anything." Not, "You're not my real dad." That would have been too messy. Too dramatic. No, this was sharper. Colder. A rejection without emotion. A scalpel, not a sword. I turned the key and started the engine. She didn't even flinch. Just kept scrolling. The silence on the drive home was a different kind of silence. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was settled. Final. like we had both agreed, without saying a word, that the roles we played were over. She was the daughter of another man, and I was the fool who tried to step into his absence. We pulled into the driveway. She grabbed her bags and walked inside without waiting. "No, see you. No, thanks for the ride." I stayed in the car. I sat there and let the engine hum. The house loomed in front of me, the porch lights already flickering on. I built that porch. Refinished the steps myself 2 summers ago while Haley was away. Jenna said it would make the place feel more like home. But whose home was it? 'Cause I didn't feel welcome anymore. I felt tolerated. Haley never once called this place ours. She always said, "I'm going to my mom's," or "I'll be back at the house." Never home. Never anything that included me. I stared at the front door like it was a wall. And something inside me, a quiet, tired part, finally spoke. Enough. Not in rage. Not in bitterness. Just a simple truth rising from the wreckage. I had been patient. I had been generous. I had given more than I had. And I was done. Not out of vengeance. Not out of spite. Out of dignity. That night, I went into the guest room. The one Jenna said we didn't need anymore because we're past that phase. I sat down and made a list. Everything I paid for. Everything I covered. Every string that held her world together. And I asked myself one question. If she doesn't owe me anything, why am I still paying? That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. I told Jenna I was tired, that I wanted to lie down early in the guest room. She didn't press. Maybe she knew something had shifted. Maybe she didn't want to know. Either way, she said nothing. Kissed me on the cheek like she had 1,000 times before, and left me in silence. I lay in that bed with the lights off, staring at the ceiling, hands crossed over my chest like a man in a coffin. I thought about everything I had done. All the little sacrifices no one noticed. The second job I took 3 summers ago when Haley's tuition suddenly jumped. The camping trip I skipped with my brothers because Haley's laptop died, and she needed a new one in the middle of midterms. I ordered it that day, next day shipping. She never said thank you. She called me 2 weeks later asking for money for groceries. I always said yes, because I thought that's what love was. Quiet, unthanked, consistent. But maybe I had confused love with servitude. At 2 a.m., I got out of bed. I walked barefoot down the hall to Haley's room. The door was open. She wasn't home, probably at Trevor's. I stood in the doorway for a minute, taking in the mess. Makeup brushes on the floor, towels draped over the desk chair, 3 empty cups on the nightstand. The kind of chaos that comes from someone who assumes someone else will always clean it up. I stepped inside. Her iPhone was plugged into the charger by the bed. I picked it up. The screen lit up. She hadn't even changed the wallpaper. Just some generic beach photo. I held it for a second, then powered it down. Took it with me. In the drawer of her desk, I found the spare key to the car. The one I bought. The one she used to haul her friends around. Music blasting. Gas always on empty when I borrowed it. I took the key. Downstairs, I logged into the bank portal. The rent on her college apartment was due next week. Auto payment scheduled. I canceled it. Then I wrote a note. Just a sheet of printer paper. No flourish. No guilt. If you don't owe me anything, give back what isn't yours. I left it on her bed, folded once down the middle like a court summons. And then I waited. She came home at 11:13 a.m. The next morning. I heard the front door slam, her steps heavy and fast. Then her voice, sharp and rising. "Mom, where's my phone?" No answer. More footsteps. Doors opening, closing. A pause. Then the scream. "Where's my car?" Another pause. Then the sound of footsteps pounding toward the kitchen. The paper I had left on her bed now crumpled in her fist. She stormed in, red-faced, eyes wide with fury. "You took my phone? And my car? Are you serious right now?" I was sitting at the table drinking coffee. Calm. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. I just said, "They're mine." Her voice cracked. "That's theft." I let the silence answer her. She spun to Jenna, who had followed her in, still in pajamas, face pale with confusion. "Mom, say something. He can't do this." Jenna looked at me, then at the note. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I spoke again. "You said you don't owe me anything. I'm agreeing, which means I don't owe you anything either, including a car, or a phone, or a place to live." Haley's face twisted. "You're overreacting." I shook my head. "No, I'm just responding." She looked at her mother again. "Are you just going to let him do this?" Jenna's voice was small. "Honey, maybe we should." I cut her off gently but firmly. Don't soften it. Don't twist it into something it's not." I stood, my coffee cup empty. I've asked for years, just basic respect. I didn't demand to be called Dad. I didn't ask for love. I asked for participation, boundaries, acknowledgement. I paid for everything because I thought we were a family. And if I was wrong about that, then I'm done paying. Haley scoffed. "You think this makes you look noble? You look pathetic. You're throwing a tantrum because I wouldn't call you Daddy." My jaw tightened, but I didn't take the bait. I looked at Jenna. "This isn't a tantrum. This is a reckoning." Then I left the kitchen, went upstairs, packed a small bag, clothes for a few days, toothbrush, nothing more. On my way out, Jenna followed me to the door. "You're leaving. I'm giving you space." "For what?" "To think." She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Her voice softened, like it always did when she wanted to de-escalate. "She's just upset. She didn't mean it." "She meant it." Jenna looked down. "She said I'm nothing to her. I'm just honoring her words." I opened the door. She didn't try to stop me. In the driveway, Haley stood on the porch, arms folded, glaring. "You know this is financial abuse, right?" I said nothing. I got in my truck, the one I kept for work, the one no one ever thanked me for using to pick up their furniture, haul their junk, fix their broken shelves, and I drove. I didn't go far, just an hour out to a friend's cabin near the woods. He owed me a favor. Let me stay the weekend, no questions asked. The first night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the porch with a bottle of bourbon and watched the stars burn through the trees. I thought of every time I had swallowed disrespect in that house and called it patience. Every time I told myself, it's just a phase. Every time I looked the other way because Jenna said, "She's going through a lot." We were all going through a lot. But only one of us was paying for everyone else's pain. The second night, Jenna texted. "She's upset. Says you were right, but she's too proud to say it." I didn't reply. This wasn't about guilt. I wasn't looking for an apology squeezed out by discomfort. I needed something deeper, something real. Because if I went back without a reckoning, nothing would change. It would just reset the cycle. Sacrifice, silence, disrespect. And me, the fool holding the line alone. On the third day, I returned. The house was quiet. Jenna was out. Haley had already left for class. But on the kitchen table next to the salt shaker was a note. Folded in half. No envelope. I opened it slowly. "I'm sorry. I was unfair. You've done more for me than anyone ever has." And I realized that when I had to explain to Trevor why everything was gone. No signature. But it didn't need one. It wasn't everything. It wasn't enough. But it was a start. That night, Jenna tried to talk. Tried to explain Haley's behavior. I stopped her. "This isn't about one sentence," I said. "This is about 10 years of erasure." She nodded. She didn't argue. Maybe she finally understood. And Haley? She didn't call me Dad. Still hasn't. Maybe she never will. But she hasn't called me Mom's boyfriend since that day either. She started saying Rick. Sometimes even my stepdad. And when she does, her voice doesn't curl in contempt. That's something. But the reckoning isn't over. It never really ends. Because respect, once denied, must be re-earned every day. I came back on a Wednesday. The house was still standing. My tools were right where I left them in the garage. The porch light flickered once before coming on. The bulb I'd meant to replace before I left. Small things like that greeted me, quiet reminders of the life I had built here. Not the life I inherited, Not the one I married into. The one I built. Haley wasn't home. Jenna had left a note on the counter. Groceries back soon. But the silence wasn't the same as before. It wasn't hollow. It was waiting. I dropped my bag by the door, walked into the kitchen. That's when I saw the note. Not Jenna's, Haley's. Folded paper, resting next to the coffee maker. Same pen I'd used 3 nights ago to write my own message. I didn't touch it at first. Just stared at it like it might disappear if I blinked. I unfolded it with slow hands. I'm sorry. I was unfair. You've done more for me than anyone ever has. And I realized that when I had to explain to Trevor why everything was gone. There was a pause in my chest. Like my heart forgot what it was supposed to do for a beat. Not forgiveness. Not repair. But recognition. She had been forced to narrate her own collapse. Explain to another person why her phone was gone. Why her car was gone. Why her housing had vanished overnight. She had to say it out loud. I said he didn't matter, and he showed me what that meant. And somewhere in that humiliation, a seed was planted. Maybe not love. Maybe not even gratitude. But awareness. The rest of the day passed quiet. I fixed the porch light. I unclogged the downstairs sink. Jenna came home, gave me a long look, didn't speak. Just wrapped her arms around me and rested her head against my shoulder like it was a place she'd forgotten she could return to. We didn't talk about the note. Not yet. The real consequences were still unfolding. That night, Haley came home. She moved like someone unsure of their own steps. She paused in the doorway of the kitchen, her bag slung over one shoulder, keys hanging useless in her hand. We looked at each other. Not a word passed between us. Then she nodded, just once, and walked upstairs. That was the first night I slept in our bed again. But sleep didn't come easy, because once the silence ends, you start hearing the debt. Every unpaid moment, every dismissed boundary, every insult dressed as indifference. You hear it all, and it doesn't stop. The next morning, Jenna made breakfast. Pancakes, Haley's favorite. She used to beg for them every Sunday. I sat at the table, coffee in hand, watching her flip them with forced calm. She's hurting, Jenna said softly. So am I. She nodded. I should have stepped in earlier. I didn't answer. There was no comfort in that kind of admission. Not after years of silence. Not after I'd begged her to take the lead as a mother. To speak when Haley refused to listen. To defend me when I was being dismissed in my own home. But she hadn't. And now we were all standing in the aftermath of that inaction. Haley didn't come down for breakfast. The pancakes got cold. Jenna scraped them into the trash. I didn't stop her. A week passed. Then 2. The changes came slowly. Subtle. Haley stopped using the phrase, my mom's boyfriend. When her friends came over, I heard her say, my stepdad once. And though it was barely audible, it was real. She started asking questions instead of making demands. Can I borrow the car? Would it be okay if I stayed at Trevor's? And once, the rarest thing of all, she said thank you. Just a whisper, barely a sound. But it cut through me like thunder. I didn't forgive her. Not then. Couldn't. Not because of pride. But because forgiveness, real forgiveness, is built on evidence. Not apologies. Not notes. But changed behavior, day after day, until the weight of disrespect is slowly replaced with the weight of effort. And effort takes time. One afternoon, I came home early from work. Jenna was at the sink. Haley was sitting at the table, laptop open, textbook spread out. I walked in. She looked up. Then she did something she hadn't done in over a year. She stood. Not fast. Not awkwardly. Just stood. Hi, she said. I nodded. Hi. A pause. Then she spoke again. I'm applying for an internship. I was wondering if you'd help me with the resume. The word sat there between us like a challenge. Like an olive branch carved from bone. I pulled out a chair. Sat down across from her. Let's see what you've got. Jenna watched us from the sink. Quiet. A flicker of something in her eyes. Relief. Guilt. Maybe both. We worked for an hour. I didn't say much. Just gave notes. Asked questions. She listened. took it seriously. When we finished, she looked at me and said, "I didn't realize how much you've done." I didn't reply, just nodded. That was enough. But the universe doesn't let peace settle without testing it. A month later, the fall tuition bill arrived. It was addressed to me, my account, my obligation. Haley never brought it up, never asked. But I saw her checking the mail every day. I saw the tension in her shoulders when she thought I wasn't watching. And I waited, not out of cruelty, but to see what she'd do when the rope wasn't handed to her. One night, I found her sitting at the dining room table. Her phone beside her, the screen dark. A calculator app open on her laptop. Papers spread out, her budget, what little savings she had, printouts of the financial aid site. She looked up when I walked in. "I'm trying to see if I can cover part of it," she said. "Maybe defer the rest." I sat down. "You didn't ask me." She shook her head. "I didn't think I should. Not after everything." I stared at her. This girl who once treated me like a convenience, a shadow, now trying to cobble together her future with scraps and borrowed time. "What's the gap?" I asked. She turned the laptop toward me. "About $4,000. I leaned back in my chair. $4,000. The cost of a lie. The price of silence. "I'll pay half," I said. She blinked. "What?" "I'll match whatever you put in. If you work, save, apply, I'll meet you in the middle." Her mouth opened, then closed. She nodded. "Okay." And for the first time it felt like a deal. Not a handout. Not an obligation. An agreement between two people. Later that night, Jenna came to me, her voice trembling. "You didn't have to do that." "No," I said. "But she did." That's when I saw it in Jenna's face. The slow realization that Haley had grown up not just because of time, but because I had stopped being the crutch she leaned on while kicking me away. Jenna sat beside me, her hand on mine. "You were right to step back." I didn't say anything, because sometimes the loudest thing you can do is nothing. Sometimes silence is the only language they understand. Fall came early that year. Sharp wind through the screens, leaves skittering across the porch like dry bones. The mornings were quieter. Haley had moved back into her place near campus. Not the same apartment, a cheaper one, closer to the bus line. She found a part-time job at the campus bookstore. Minimum wage. No tips. But it was a start. And it was hers. She never asked me to co-sign again. She paid her half of the tuition just like we agreed. The check she handed me was torn slightly at the corner, like she'd been gripping it too tightly. Her signature at the bottom was small, careful, as if she was afraid of the permanence. But she gave it to me with steady hands. I added mine to the other half. Dropped the envelope at the post office that same afternoon. No lecture. No grand moment. Just business. A deal honored. That night we had dinner together. Just the three of us. Jenna cooked. Haley cleared the dishes afterward. Voluntarily. No one asked her. She didn't say much, but her silence was different now. Not cold. Just quiet. Like someone still learning how to be present. And maybe that's all she ever needed. Not lectures, not generosity, not even love. Just space to realize what she took for granted. But still, the damage lingered. I couldn't forget the way her words landed that day in the car. "I don't owe you anything." She said it like a truth, and maybe it was. Legally, she was right. Morally, that was the question that wouldn't stop echoing in my mind, even after she began to change. Because that's the thing about betrayal, it stains. Even if you wash the shirt, even if you sew the tear, the threads never forget where they were broken. And I was tired of mending. Jenna tried to reconnect the seams. She started saying things like, "I'm proud of how you handled that," or "She's changed, you know," or "You did good." But it always sounded like she was trying to sell me on a redemption arc I hadn't asked for. Like she needed the narrative to end neatly, so she could sleep better at night. But I wasn't looking for neat. I was looking for truth. And the truth is, I didn't feel like a father anymore. I felt like a man who had tried to fill someone else's shoes. Someone who had walked away years ago and left me to mop up the silence. I gave and gave and gave, thinking the love would come. That one day, Haley would look at me and see a man worth respecting. That Jenna would hear me when I said, I feel invisible, that the house we shared would become a home. But what I learned instead is that love without boundaries becomes currency. And I was bankrupt, so I stopped trying to be dad. I didn't push for holidays together, didn't remind her to call, didn't hover. I stepped back, not to punish her, to reclaim myself, because I needed to remember who I was before the role, before the expectations, before the constant quiet of being second best in a house where I did all the heavy lifting. I started going fishing again, alone. Mornings on the lake with no phone, no obligations, just water and breath. I took a weekend trip with my brothers. The same one I skipped 3 years ago to cover Haley's laptop. This time I went. This time I laughed. I fixed the shed out back, cleaned it top to bottom, turned it into a workshop, bought myself a new set of tools, not because I needed them, but because I wanted them. I didn't tell Jenna. She found out when I started spending hours out there in the evening, sanding down wood just to feel the rhythm of work that didn't serve anyone but me. One night, Haley came by unannounced, said she was in the area, said she had something to drop off. It was a photo, just a cheap 4x6, printed from Walgreens. Me, her, and Jenna at her high school graduation. I was holding her cap in one hand. She was laughing. I had forgotten that moment even existed. On the back, in her handwriting, I was wrong. You didn't owe me anything either. But you gave it anyway. I see that now. I held the photo for a long time after she left. I didn't cry, but something inside me eased. Not healed, not whole, but no longer aching. I put the photo on the workbench. Still there. That's as close as we ever came to forgiveness. And maybe that's enough. Jenna asked me once if I regretted it. Marrying her, stepping into the role, raising someone else's child. I told her the truth. No. I regret waiting so long to set boundaries. I regret thinking sacrifice alone could build a relationship. But no, I don't regret showing up. She cried when I said that, held my hand like she used to, the kind of grip that says, don't let go. But the truth was I had already let go. Not of her, but of the illusion. The fantasy that love alone could erase rejection. That kindness could make you seen. Some debts never get paid. Some roles never get acknowledged. And that's the thing no one tells you about being a stepfather. You love without a map. You give without guarantees. You hold up the house while being treated like you don't belong in it. And if you're not careful, if you don't draw the line, you disappear. I came close. Too close. But I pulled back just in time. Now, Haley texts every once in a while. Small things. Can I get your opinion on this? How did you fix the leaky pipe that one time? Did you see the game? She signs her messages with a heart sometimes. Not every time, but sometimes. And Jenna kisses me when I leave for work again. She's quieter these days. More careful. Less quick to defend Haley. More present. We don't talk about the summer everything snapped. We don't need to, because the silence in our house has changed. It used to be the silence of dismissal. The kind that hums under your skin, makes you question your worth. Now it's the silence of understanding, of space, of a man who no longer bends. I still don't get called dad, and I'm okay with that, because I'm not here to be named. I'm here to be respected, and that starts with me. I look back now at that day outside the mall, her voice so casual, so cruel. I don't owe you anything. She thought she was declaring freedom. What she really did was tell me the truth I had been too afraid to face. That I'd been giving love like a man trying to buy entry into a family that had already decided I didn't belong. So I stopped buying. And for the first time they came to me, on their terms. Not always, not perfectly, but willingly. That's the difference. That's what I needed. Not gratitude, not affection, just choice. So here's my question to you, whoever's listening. Was I wrong to pull the plug? To take back what I paid for? To force her to confront what she took for granted? Or was this the only way left to teach a lesson no one else was willing to say out loud? That respect has a cost. And I was done paying it. You tell me, would you have endured it? Or would you have walked out too?